Hey guys, today we are going to jump right into symbiosis. So you have three types of symbiosis. The first is parasitism, then commensalism, and the last one is mutualism. You'll notice these little faces represent different things, and we'll talk about those as we go into each type. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll start with parasitism. A parasitistic relationship is when a parasite lives off of a host, harming or killing the host. So you'll notice back up here with your faces, you have two faces and each one represents an animal. So your happy face here would represent your parasite. Your parasite is getting all of the resources that it needs from the host. And that host is going to be your sad face. Your host is being hurt or killed. It's not a good situation for the host. So let's look at some examples. Okay, first up, we're going to start really simple with humans. When a human gets lice, that is an example of parasitism. So lice on humans. The lice are living off of the human's scalp and skin, and they're eating and making a home, and it is obviously harmful to you as a human. Not only is it itchy and gross, but it can end up making you sick if it's not treated. Okay, next up would be a tick on a dog. Okay, if you have dogs or you've ever had an outside pet, sometimes you have to check them for ticks because ticks will attach and they slowly suck the blood of the animal, the host organism, in this case a dog, and they end up making the dog or the host very sick while the tick gets everything it needs. Another example would be mistletoe. Mistletoe, sorry, on other plants. So mistletoe, I think, is most commonly thought of around the holiday times. And it does grow in trees and up high, and you will see it maybe sometimes driving down the road. It will attach itself to other plants and kind of suck their nutrients and use the other plants to help it survive and grow and multiply. So mistletoe is a parasite. All right, let's go ahead and move right over to commensalism. Again, let's notice our faces up here. We have a happy face and then a neutral face. So let's see what that's going to look like. Commensalism is when one organism benefits and the other is unaffected. Okay, so some examples of this would be a bird called a cattle egret. On cattle. So if you've ever seen, or if you live on a farm, sometimes there's these little birds that will kind of sit on the back of cattle, or if you have a bull on its horns, and they are able to eat the flies and the bugs that are around the cattle, so it doesn't bother the cattle at all. Another example would be a barnacle on a whale. So some older whales end up with barnacles attached to different parts of them, and it kind of helps the barnacle because the barnacle gets to travel, and it really doesn't bother the whale that much. I think the most common example is the remora fish and a shark. Okay, the remora fish is the little fish that kind of swims below, just below the shark's mouth, and it catches all of the scraps that the shark doesn't eat, or just the food that falls out of the shark's mouth. Obviously not bothering the shark, and the remora fish is getting a full meal. So the shark is unaffected, and the remorse fish is very happy. All right. Last but certainly not least is mutualism. So with mutualism, you'll notice there are two happy faces. So we can assume that this is going to be a situation that benefits both organisms in the relationship. So we'll go ahead and start, and we're going to start with the word both. Both organisms are helped. Okay, this means both benefit. In this situation, neither organism is harmed. Neither organism is harmed. So some examples. Bees and flowers. Okay, the bee can land and get nectar from the flower, and while that's happening, it's getting covered in the pollen from the flower, which then helps the flower to reproduce and that pollen to spread as the bee lights on different flowers as it moves on throughout the day. Okay, the most well-known example would be a clownfish, talking about Nemo, and a sea anemone. Okay, the sea anemone provides protection and a home for the clownfish, and the clownfish cleans the sea anemone as it swims throughout it. A cleaner shrimp and a fish. Okay, cleaner shrimp kind of lives in and around a fish's mouth, and it cleans up, gets some scraps, and then that leaves the fish with a cleaner situation. The cleaner shrimp gets a meal, and it's a good situation for everybody. One more example would be an oxpecker. This is a kind of bird. Okay, the oxpecker lives on grazing animals. And those are big animals like rhinos, a giraffe, or even a zebra. There are a few more. And the oxpecker is going to be able to eat bugs and parasites off of the grazing animal. So it's helping to keep the grazing animal healthy. And by doing so, it gets a meal. So that is an example of mutualism. Let's go back really quickly and review each of the three types. So we started off with parasitism. We have one happy face and one sad face because a parasite lives off of the host, harming or killing the host. Remember, we talked about lice on humans and ticks on a dog. Commensalism. We have one happy face and one kind of neutral face. This is when one organism benefits and one is unaffected. We talked about a barnacle on a whale or a remora fish on a shark for that one. And then last but not least, we have mutualism. And remember, mutualism is two happy faces. Both benefit. Both organisms are helped. Neither one is harmed. And we talked about bees on flowers or Nemo in that sea anemone. This is a good situation for everyone. I hope symbiosis makes a little bit more sense to you guys. You're going to do a lot of practice with this. So if you will get this glued in your notebook, or if you're in Miss Bernie's class, you can hole punch it and add it in, and you can move on to the next activity.